This meeting to order. I have 5:34 p.m. Would you please do roll call? Here. Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here.
Please stand and join me for the pledge. All about the invocation. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tim.
Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious day that you've given us. Each breath that we take, we offer to you. Lord, please be with us in this meeting and guide our thoughts and the decisions that are made here. Lord, we ask that you watch over and safeguard our police and firefighters and all those that stand and protect us from harm. Lord, we ask all this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Well, I thank you, Council, for being present. Thank you to our staff for being here, to our citizens that are present. Do we have anyone signed up for citizens communications? Yes?
That goes down to the mayor.
Thank you, Scott. Brad Caffey.
I guess I have to go up there, don't I?
Yes, sir, please.
Proof of address.
Brad Caffey, 1803 Highland Avenue. I'm just bringing up, I want to put this out today because hopefully on our next city council meeting, which is next week, we'll get some input from Ben. It's the same old high grass from commercial properties in Rockdale, or I say commercial properties in Rockdale. I know we have a lot of residents. It is getting real old seeing national chains with grass that high. And I'll call them out, the auto zones. Dollar General finally, I guess, got somebody with a shredder in there to cut theirs. I know a lot of local businesses, you can't shame them into it, but I think we need to reach out. If they're local managers, and hopefully you can tell us this next week and how you've approached them. I say go above their local managers, take pictures, send them to their corporate offices, because I can promise you, it don't look like they're at their locations in Austin or Round Rock or Hutto or Dallas. I can assure you that. But they have no problem doing it here. And I think they need to put them on blast, contact their corporate offices over and over and over. It's an embarrassment for them to have them like that. It's an embarrassment for anybody down Cameron Avenue 79 to have it like that. But at least some of them, I would hope they can get it done. And so for next week, we can have some, some insight on what the procedures are, what's happened in the past, and why they will not cut their grass. That's all I got.
Thank you, Councilmember Caffey. Moving on to our regular agenda. Regular agenda item number 1 is consider take any necessary action to accept a proposed employee benefit schedule for fiscal year 2026-2027 and authorize the city manager to sign the resulting agreements.
So we have our representative from Navarro here to address council with the benefit package that you have before you tonight.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I appreciate your letting me come and speak before you. I do have a presentation that I put together. This is many years that we have been working for City of Rockdale and putting forth the employee benefits for the employees. And if you want to advance the slide, that would be good. So the 2026 renewal objectives that we did is last year we aligned the fiscal year, and then so we did that completely. Then we went out to market. We kind of did a comparison out to market, and I've got some information in here for you. The goal was to really try to maintain competitive benefits, make sure that the employees that are working here, that they have good benefits that they can have for their family members if they choose to elect, and that they feel that their plan is secure, and we've been able to complete that. Wanted to definitely control budget costs. That is a definite important factor. So under kind of the outcome that we did is we negotiated the medical plan to a 0% increase. So there's no increase to the medical plan this year. And then overall wanted to be sure that we minimize the employee disruption. So there's no significant changes to the plan this year. The one thing that I did want to point out for the 2027 budget planning, just to kind of make a consideration, when the medical renewals are released are typically 75 days prior to the effective date. So that would mean somewhere around July 15th is when we're going to receive the renewal for next year. So I know that you try to set the budget ahead of time, as far in advance as possible, but now that it is pushed back an additional month to align with our strategy of last year, to align with fiscal year, it does leave a little bit of extra squishing in to try to put everything together. So throughout the year, we look at claims to determine where the claims are versus what the premium is that's being paid in. And we could kind of provide a little bit of guidance ahead of time to make sure that if there is some substantial claims in that particular year, we can say, look, there's going to be an increase. This is what I think you should place in the budget. So we're always looking, proactively to find out where the claims are going to be for the next year. Okay. But overall, for this year, the recommendation that we have, that I brought forth to Tim and their staff, was to renew with Baylor Scott & White on the PPO plan that is currently in force, and then to maintain the gap policy that is currently in force. And year after year, Baylor Scott & White has just been a really good program to work with in this area. And then on the ancillary side, the medical, the dental, the vision, and the other benefits that were moved last year over to Mutual of Omaha, those benefits, with the exception of the dental plan, they all remained the same. There was not any increase because I negotiated a multiple-year rate guarantee, with the exception of the dental. And the dental originally came back at a 9% increase, and I negotiated that down to 7%. So it was just a small increase with that. Additionally, what I did is I did go out to market. Baylor Scott & White initially provided us a no-shop offer. I discussed that offer with Tim, and he said, really think that it's the best idea to go out and shop the market anyway. So I knew that going into that, the claims were very good, and I wanted to just kind of check to see if there was anything else that was going to be even better for the city. Some of the things that I found is Aetna, 78% higher than where the rates are currently. Blue Cross Blue Shield, 79% higher on the PPO plan. The equivalent HMO program was 17.8% higher. So ultimately, you can kind of see that Baylor Scott & White is definitely in the best interest of the city. Angle Health, Cigna, United Healthcare, they all basically said, we're not even going to quote because we know we're not going to be competitive. Okay. And then some of the other alternative solutions that we evaluated was, staying with the gap policy that we have today. So it's basically the gap policy comes in and it helps to reduce the employee's deductible, because we do have a $5,000 deductible. The gap policy on top of that reduces that deductible down to $750. Okay, so financially it makes sense to have that. We also looked at moving from the Baylor Scott & White PPO plan down to an HMO plan, which would have saved additional income for the city. However, it was looked at as, right now the premiums are level. We don't have an increase. Maybe we can use that as a negotiating arm in a later year where we have maybe some higher claims. Employees also that were coming in as potential candidates looked at the PPO plan as being a superior benefit. So a couple of different considerations there. One of the others that we looked at, and we really looked at this pretty extensively, is removing the gap policy and replacing that gap policy with a MERP, which is a medical expense reimbursement program. Definitely an innovative option to really consider at a later time. It makes the cost higher, but it does kind of help to reduce the deductible and the out-of-pocket maximums for the employees more. But it is more expensive to offer that type of a program. So overall, just considering keeping the plan where it was. I did provide a side-by-side comparison. I know on the slide it's going to be pretty little, so maybe looking at your handout may be the best. Not necessarily having to go over a lot of information on here, but the first two columns, it compares the current plan to the renewal plan, and there's no plan changes for 2026, so there's no impact to the employees. The gap policy secondary, as I mentioned before, it takes the plan deductible from $5,000 down to $750 as the deductible. On the gap policy, I like to point out that there are some ineligible expenses that do not apply towards the gap, which would be office visit copayments, which are listed here, which did not change. It's $30 for an employee to go to the doctor, and then $60 for a specialist. And then prescription drugs do not apply towards the gap policy, but it helps to remove that extra cost of the employees and dropping that deductible down, so it's attractive. Under the premium, on the medical on page 8, this does provide what the current, the current premiums. The middle is the renewal. It does not have a gain share, and I'll explain what that gain share means in just a moment. And then the negotiated keeps the premiums the same that they were before. A point to consider: last year the gain share was an option. This year it is not an option for for the city, just because we have under 51 enrolled members, or enrolled employees under the plan, so they're no longer offering that for smaller groups. But as far as our negotiation, it's not a lot, but the original renewal was 5%, 5.19% was the original renewal. So we did save about $23,500, close to $23,000 for the city based on our negotiations. And then directly avoided about $15,000 in direct city expenses, because you pay a majority of the employee's premium, but not for the spouse and dependents. Then on page 9, reviewing over what the gap policy adds, because there is a cost to the gap policy. With the current renewal, it matches exactly to what it was in 2025. And then over on the right-hand side, I thought it would be good to illustrate what the MERP policy would have added. It would have ended up being a 19.93% increase. So just wanted to provide that.
What does the gap insurance itself cost us?
The gap insurance is about $4,336 a month. A little bit less than that, really, for the city directly, because you also have dependents and you've got spouse premium and things like that.
$4,000 a month
It's about approximately, it's $43,3636.
is the total premium, but the city
Correct.
doesn't pay that whole premium
Correct.
part of that whenever, because the city only pays, what percent for
100% employee. Mhm. Yep, so there's 50 contracts total.
50% for employee dependent care?
But the whole premium for everybody is 4,300, or that's the city's
That,
portion?
the city's portion, and I'm not fantastic with right off the cuff premium wise, but if you do 6096 times 50, what would that be?
About 3,300.
About 3,300. Okay, so that would be the cost to the city monthly for the gap policy. Because there's 50 current contracts. So if we do the math on what the employee only rate is, which is the amount that that the city pays towards that benefit,
$3,300 per employee for the gap?
No.
or all employees.
Oh, for all, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The difference,
The
the difference between that and the total amount is picked up by the employees. They have dependent care coverage, employee, spouse, employee, family, employee, child.
Right. The next information is the gain share program. So in 2025, Baylor Scott and White provided this as part of their proposal. And what Baylor Scott and White does in this is that if the plan is running, if you take the claims that are paid in, or the premiums that are paid in versus the claims that are paid out, that's considered a medical loss ratio. So if the medical loss ratio per Baylor Scott and White is less than 70%, then Baylor Scott and White will actually refund 50% of the difference between the 70% medical loss ratio, what those numbers would be, and where the city actually is. So currently today, the city is sitting at 63%. So Baylor Scott and White has kind of gained this year. The city has paid in more premiums than what Scott and White has paid out in claims. So they're willing to actually provide 50% of a difference back to the city based on.
Between 63% and 70%?
Correct.
Does that go to the city or does that go to the
Goes to the
individual?
city, goes back to the city. And then those funds should be allocated back to the medical plan, future medical plan expenses. So the final numbers will not be completed until probably, I'd say the end of September, which is the end of the contract. And then from there, it'll usually take 30 to 60 days for that to pay back out.
In other words, this, if we didn't get any gain share, this is what the cost would be. It'll be reduced by the gain share that we end up getting back.
Right. So,
Correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So we really don't get a check, we just got like credit in the future is what you got
Correct. Yeah, they'll do
It would reduce our cost, premium cost.
applied to it.
yeah. Which is good. I mean, that's good that they're actually providing something.
They're golden.
Doesn't go forward to 2020, 2026.
So the,
It's not going to be continuing on for the new plan year just because you have less than 51 eligible employees.
so the recommendation is to go with the same Baylor Scott and White plan that we have currently in the same gap plan, to stay with Mutual of Omaha for the other plans.
Right, yes.
What was the difference in the amount for the HMO and the PPO?
It was, let me see, I don't think I have it on this particular slide. I believe it was about a 12 to 13% difference,
Increase or decrease?
decrease. So, which,
And what is the difference in the functionality between the HMO, PPO and the HMO?
sure, the difference in that is that the PPO plan is going to have out-of-network benefits. So if somebody goes out of network, chooses to go to, say, MD Anderson, if they have a major cancer ailment or something, then they would have coverage there. If they were outside of the area, then they would not have coverage if they were on the HMO. In this particular area, a majority of the providers are within Baylor Scott and White. So, the employees primarily were using only Baylor Scott and White providers, which, was one of the reasons that I brought forth. Maybe it's something we consider using the HMO, in the future or this year, to determine if that's something that helps to reduce the premiums.
I'm just curious, I don't want to dissect it, but I'm just curious, if you look at the month of July, it went to 135% was the loss ratio. Do we have a claim, a certain claim? Because that July, that's not a lot of sicknesses or something. Okay.
Yeah, there was a large claim that happened during that month.
Fair enough.
And those are things that are going to happen.
No, I just didn't know about in the wintertime, it'd be colds and coughs and all that, but.
No, and I mean,
Typically a surgery or something.
Yeah.
to
Right,
drive
right,
that up, yeah.
good.
but overall, you've run very, very well year over year over year. One of these times, we may go the other way, but we kind of stay focused on the big picture.
What kind of increase did we have last year, do you know?
We had a decrease last year.
So it went down last year and it stayed staying the same this year.
Do we have a gain share last year?
We did
Going
not
into
have
this year?
gain share
This
last
is the first year we're
This
eligible?
is- Yeah, this is the first year that we've actually been able to take advantage of the gain share. So,
Good.
yep.
And that 70% is a hard target to meet, but in fact,
crossed.
when you have really
And-
good claims.
And potentially, I mean, there could be a claim that happens today
Right.
that takes us out of that. So it's not guaranteed, but it's looking profitable at this point.
Is gap insurance something that we've always had, we've always offered from the city?
Since I've been here, I don't know how,
I've been with the city for, 9 years, and it's been here since I came on board with Tim.
it's the first city that I've had that's had a gap insurance, but $5,000 deductible, 10,000 out of network, and the out of pocket is pretty high for the city.
I look at gap insurance though even if you pay,
You're buying that deductible day, so
it's $51,000 worth of gap insurance that could be paid towards somebody's deductible if you get creative.
what is
So,
the,
and the reason that we have the gap policy is being creative, because if you purchase a plan that has, let's just say, a $750 deductible, your premiums are going to be about 20% higher.
Leave your deductible at $5,000,
Yep.
and if the city picks up anything between the individual deductible and that maximum out of pocket, we can take 5 families to maximum out of pocket a year for that same
Yep.
$50,000.
Yep. And that's kind of the looking at the MERP, the Medical Expense Reimbursement Program, like an HRA program. And that's why we kind of looked at that to see if that was another alternative.
And what were the cons to that? You said
More
that
expensive. It ended up being more expensive by having that. The program that we looked at is called Nonstop Health, and it was a very good program, but ultimately it was going to be 19% higher by adding that in. Now, long term, there could have been a saving strategy in that. Once you have claims year over year over year, if those claims aren't spent, then there ends up being a little bit of balance that can be attained. But
what is 19% of what? Of what dollar amount?
so the MERP would have left a $4,000 gap. Would have been $4,000 worth of benefits, so it would have left the employees with a $1,000 back end deductible, and the premium.
What's the difference? So it's $100,000 difference in the premium.
Correct.
603, yeah, versus 503.
That's not the, I'll digest it later.
Yeah, it would have been about $100,000 difference to add the nonstop benefit with the $1,000 back end deductible for the employees.
And you say that might be a long-term avenue.
The
to go.
long-term strategy to do by offering a medical expense reimbursement program versus the gap. And that was, something to bring forward to look at, because if, the employees aren't using it, they're not having claims, then that does eventually build a reserve on the back end. So which could end up being less. So it's just trying to get creative with things.
And so, one of the things that this policy is on a calendar year or on our fiscal
Correct.
year?
Fiscal year.
The plan is a calendar year.
And that, the reason I asked this question is our plan was, not on a calendar year, and it causes fiasco on deductibles, because your
Right.
deductible is figured on a calendar year, but your
Right.
plan is split between, so this plan is calendar year, so deductibles for January to December.
Start January 1st.
Okay.
Correct. Okay. And the fact that it's been that way for so many years, the only time that makes any sort of an impact is if somebody is brand new coming into the plan mid-year, because they will have that one deductible to meet and then would start over again in January.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got
Due to
two insurance-
ACA, everything kind of moved everything to January 1st, back years ago.
People know they're gonna have a big expense. I would encourage them to have it between October 1 and December 31st.
Yes.
That way it won't drive up the premium for the next year until the next October. And,
From their point of view, they want to have it in January.
well, actually in January, yeah.
Absolutely. Have it done
January.
either, yep.
January.
Have it done in January. Yep. So wait until it crosses over that threshold and then go ahead and have your stuff done.
We used to have to threaten our kids, don't you get hurt now. You
That's
wait.
right, 100%. I've been there, done that. Any other questions? Mm-hmm. Yeah, do not hurt yourself.
Council, any other questions?
Thank you. No, sir.
You're welcome.
So the recommendation, again, is to renew with the same policy with Baylor Scott and White and the GAP plan, and with Mutual of Omaha for the other policies, dental, vision, health insurance, life insurance.
Yeah, our life, our dental, vision, short-term disability, critical illness, accident, all that's through mutual home.
And a polling of the employees is that this plan is as satisfactory as anything else?
That's a question I wrote down.
I have not polled the employees, but generally if they're dissatisfied, I'll hear about it. Tiffany will hear about it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I have employees come in the office all the time and have, ask for doctors and this, that. Because of where we are, that's pretty much just all around us, is Baylor Scott and White facilities. So they're easily accessed and they don't have a problem finding doctors or specialists in the area.
Yeah, I guess the closest Baylor Scott and White facility is Cameron, right?
We have Cameron, Temple, Taylor.
Taylor, yeah.
Bus stations.
Ball Station, yeah.
Round Rock.
Council, you wish to take action on this item?
Yes, please.
So, how do you say the name again? Novora? Novora. I make a recommendation that we accept the package put together for the employee benefits from Novora as presented. Second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 2, consider and take any necessary action on setting the proposed City of Rockdale 2026 tax rate, setting the public hearing if necessary, and directing staff to post notice of proposed 2026 tax rate. Tim?
So this action, there's actually kind of two actions in one. One would be to set the maximum property tax rate that we were able to consider as we move forward. We'll have a public hearing next Monday, and then after that, there will be action at a following meeting to approve a tax rate and approve a budget. And the tax rate can be lowered, but it can't be increased. It can't be any more than what we are proposing for this. So we are recommending a tax rate for the fiscal year 26-27 of 0.782141. And it has to be done with record vote and a specific language. So the recommendation would be that you would make a motion to adopt a tax rate of a maximum tax rate of 0.782141, and that this budget will raise more revenue from property taxes than last year's budget by an amount of $100,000, which is a 3.57% increase from last year's budget. The property tax revenue to be raised from the new property added to the tax roll this year is $52,028.
Real quick, so our current one's 0.88.
Our current tax rate is 0.85.
0.85.
But then you add all-
Voter approved rate of 0.88.
So we're looking to actually lower it.
Yes, we are proposing to lower the tax rate from 0.85 down to 0.782141.
That's the 0.782141 is the maximum, you said?
That is the maximum that we
We
would,
may still be able to go lower.
we still could go
Not
lower.
up, So I got you. This isn't setting it at 78.78,
Right.
just saying it will be
And the-
higher than that.
Yes, and the budget that we're talking about reflects this particular tax rate, revenue estimated from this particular tax rate.
So we're lowering the tax rate, but at this rate, we're set to make 100,000 more from last year's tax rate.
Because of property values.
And those properties being new ones, Tim, was that not just, is that like some of the new houses in Rockdale and then Cornerstone? Is that the new properties that were?
New assessed value all over the city. So that would include things like AutoZone, the medical
It ain't their
clinic.
lawn mowing services.
I'm sorry?
It's not their lawn mowing services.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess it's like the went out by the Walmart, all that, okay, gotcha.
The new medical clinics, renovations to people's houses that cause their assessed value to go up, or new construction.
They're not getting yard of the month this year, I guarantee that. Dave Milton does not have to go out there, I can promise you that. So,
Jim, would you bring him back into order, please?
all right, thank you.
So, and I will say, for the record, this is, the new revenue rate is what this is considered from the tax worksheet that the county appraisal district completed for us. And so this includes the maintenance operation, no new tax rate.
And that takes into account what percentage of collection rate from the county, 98%? What,
98.5%. Yeah. So we don't calculate it 100%.
but we're using the data, whatever percentage they've been consistently collecting is what we're basing our number off of as well?
Yes.
Substantially dropping it down. I like that. Substantially dropping it down. That's back from when we first got it.
Mine too. So, I heard what you said, but I also heard you mention that, I think I heard you mention that there's a chance that that rate, I think I heard you mention, that proposed rate could go down? Did I hear you say that?
Yes, I did say that. Now, I'm not recommending that it go down. I recommend that that's the rate that we adopt. It is the maximum rate that we could adopt if that's the maximum rate that you set today. If the council
So-
feels like they want to reduce that rate and, make additional cuts to the budget, that we can do that. But they can't go, once you set this as a maximum rate, you can't go above it.
Yes, I understand that. And I know that there's been very diligent, hard work done on this proposed budget to try to get to where we are today.
I'm all for cutting it as much as we can cut it. With that being said, I want things to look better around here.
I'm sorry?
I want things to look better around town. That's a big priority of mine, I think and I will look anybody in the eye and say, yes, I took your taxes up 2 more cents than I could have brought them down, but I'm gonna give you something in return versus continue it to look like it does. Do we have enough money, if we get to this tax rate, that you can look me in the eye and say, yes, things are gonna get cleaned up around town. We're not running so lean that we can't do these things because that's what breeds, other people to get on board with cleanliness and leading by example. And so I want to, is there money in there to do those things?
So I'm looking in the eye and say, we will get the town cleaned up and get it looking better. We can't go up on the tax rate from this 7.8 to 1.41.
Well, we understand. I think everyone up here understands it cannot go up. We're limited because of state law. We get that.
Correct.
No, once we adopt this, we can't go up.
We can't
No.
go up, period, because of state law.
And so because of the fact that we didn't get the audit completed and submitted to the state in time, the Attorney General, they passed a law last session that said that if you don't get it submitted in time, you can't go above the no new revenue
That's
rate.
correct. We're capped.
So we're not really voting on anything. I'm being serious. It is what it is, then, correct?
We can't go up,
Okay.
we can go down.
So, for example, if we pass this, as you proposed it, and this is a serious question, would this help get in a second employee to help him do his code enforcement?
So this rate and the budget that we have provided includes that second employee. And we're actually going through the process right now to get that person hired. Hopefully we'll have the renovations done in the next 2 weeks and be able to bring that person
Because
on board.
I think you know how serious I am, and I probably speak for the whole council up here. You just heard it out of Mayor Pro Tem Perry's mouth about code enforcement, and it's no secret Ben's overloaded, right?
Yep.
We ask a lot for code enforcement work, and there's a lot of work to be done out there. And so if I'm happy to hear that second employee would be covered, that salary would be covered with this type of, anyhow.
So, can't go up because we didn't get the audit done in time, blah, 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 blah. That's a 1 year thing, 2 year thing, 3 year thing, 1 year.
1 year.
So, I'm not proposing that we're gonna go up when we get ourselves out of that bind. But if we find that we cannot physically operate on this, our hands aren't tied except for this year, assuming we get the audit in this year on time.
But
And we will.
And we learned from last, or this past year about why the audit wasn't turned in or done in time.
Yes.
It won't happen, I guess.
Yeah, so we've gone through a couple of interim finance directors, and we switched to a new auditor, which they are asking for a lot more and looking at things a lot more closely. And Michelle has been, that has been her number one priority, pretty much since March. She started at the end of February, end of January, and identified that nothing had, the previous interim had not submitted anything to the auditor. And then when she started sorting through it, the bank reconciliations from September had not been completed, and they were a real mess, and she had to go back almost 2012 in some cases to get everything sorted out. We've got it sorted out. We've got everything to the auditor. I talked to Mike Brooks last Friday, and he was going to get with his auditors and schedule that on-site. When I talked with him, he said it would probably be in September before they made their report to council. But we already signed the contract, and so we are going to be working ahead of time on next year's audit, so that he understands it has to be done and submitted to council and to the state before the end of March.
But Tim, it has to help with all the new properties that say Cornerstone with all new ad valorem taxes. They'll have to help cushion for lower rates in the future, correct? We'll be naturally taking in more money.
We are getting
think that would
additional
actually
revenue.
lower
Now with
big
Cornerstone,
picture.
we're only getting, I think 40% of the revenue from Cornerstone.
But
Still, it is additional revenue.
Helps.
We're seeing it.
yeah, yeah.
I would just piggyback off of what Councilman Perry said. You know, I don't want to be the one that raises taxes or does this, but, you know, we found ourselves with the water. We didn't raise this, and all of a sudden, we're way out of whack with things. I would agree. I just want to make sure we're able to continue to grow as the growth we see is coming. Continue to grow because we're able to finance it and fund it.
And I mean, at 85 cents where we've been the last few years, that's the highest rate of any city in
It's
the,
higher than yes,
every other city in the TCMA Region 7 district, which
correct.
includes all of the Austin area, all the way up to Waco, all the way over to Bryan College Stations.
Substantially higher.
You know, about 60 cities where we were sitting at the top.
Good attitude.
We're going the right direction.
Where does this put us, just out of curiosity? Is it middle of the row, or is it
No,
still
it's not the
towards
middle of the road,
top?
it's still high. I don't think it's gonna be the highest. I said average is probably around 60 cents. Between 58 and 62 cents, somewhere in there, is gonna be average.
So how do they do that? I guess I would like some kind of explanation. How does another city operate at such a lower rate than we do? What are we doing wrong?
Well, I would say part of the issue is that we have no industry.
Yeah, industry.
We have no industry. And even if having one or two or three industrial developments makes a big difference from an ad valorem standpoint. Our sales tax revenues are decent, they're not great, but they're growing. And so, you know, the fact, Bee Cave just zeroed out their tax rate. They have zero property tax rate because of the fact that they have like $30 million, we're looking at the $30 million a year in sales tax revenue.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, if you think back, that's why Tim has been working so diligently with our MDD to develop the industrial park out there and try to attract growth out there with the right kind of industry, so.
And you get water out to the industrial commercial properties.
Yes, so those are the key factors in helping our citizens and reducing this tax rate is that kind of development, the proper kind of industrial development. And so, it all, and I hate to go back in history, but you asked the question, so I'm gonna go a little bit back in history. When Alcoa closed, we dropped down, and corporate companies that supported Alcoa, like Fastenal and other big companies that were here and paid taxes, and, you know, they all went with Alcoa. And so it's no secret, and our citizens know very well that the burden to support our city budget fell on the citizens through property taxes, right? And it's continued to fall on the citizens. So as council, it's important that we continue to work hard with our MDD and with other development to try to get industrial type development and other retail development in our city, to continue to build a tax base off of that to give relief to our citizens on their property taxes to have other means to support our city budget.
That is correct.
Thank you. So, in your worksheet put here together, did you make any, you handed us a new one,
This right here?
no, the budget workbook here,
And we do have a budget workshop to discuss.
That's after this.
but everything in this is supported by this.
Right, and that's why it's just when you set a tax rate, it's maximum, and if you want to make cuts and go down, but everything in the budget that's currently in this budget is covered by the tax rate. The revenues that are projected in here are covered by the tax rate that we're proposing.
So I guess to move on, there's nothing we can do about this. Only thing we can do is adjust this.
Correct.
Let's move on. You need a motion for this?
I do.
The motion would,
It would be individual votes.
and if it's all right with council, if I can provide you with the motion?
Sure. Sure.
So the motion would be to approve a maximum tax rate of .782141. That will be reflected in a budget that will raise more revenue from property taxes than last year's budget by an amount of $100,000, which is a 3.57% increase from last year's budget. And the property tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year is $52,028.
Okay, I will second that.
Now, it's actually.
He can't actually make the
You have to
motion.
say, so moved.
What was the number?
So moved?
This is the number.
It's on it's right here.
78241.
.782141. Shannon, are you going to record these votes?
Do we hand them in to you after we, okay.
She's going to record them.
But you gotta make a motion first.
So somebody would have to say so moved, and then somebody would second it.
I'll make a motion that we accept the maximum set rate for the 26-27 year at .782141. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then the rest of it is the heading at that.
Oh, the budget will raise more revenue from the property taxes than last year's budget by an amount of $100,000, which is 3.57% increase from last year's budget. The property tax revenue will be raised from new property added to the tax roll. Tax roll this year is $52,028.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. We will now vote individually. I will start down that way with Councilmember Willie. What say ye?
Okay.
Councilmember Caffey, what say ye?
A.
Mayor Pro Tem Perry, what say ye?
Yay?
Mayor Rodham, I say yay. Councilmember Starnes, what say ye?
Yay.
Councilmember Flores, what say ye?
Your A's sound very much like nays.
I said like Canadians.
So for clarification, everyone's voted yay or yes. Is that correct?
Yay. Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
The motion on the floor passes unanimously. Shannon, you got it? Okay. Moving on to the last agenda item,
What was it?
conduct a workshop on the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget.
Oh, Mayor, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Also, as part, you need to set a public hearing for the tax rate and the budget for August 10th at 5:30.
Both of them at that time?
There'll be two public hearings, one on the tax rate, one on the public hearing, one on the budget.
Does that require a motion? Okay.
Yes. I don't think it has to be a record vote, does it?
So you need a motion for the adoption of the tax rate?
No.
Setting of the tax
You
rate?
need a motion to set a public hearing on the tax rate and a motion, and setting a public hearing on the budget. Just the public hearings.
Can that all be encompassed in one motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion that we set for August the 10th for a public hearing on the budget and a
Public hearing on the.
public hearing on the setting of the tax rate
Tax rate.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion?
5:30.
at 5:30 PM at City Council chambers.
We still have a quorum without Councilmember Flores present. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Now moving on to regular agenda item number 3, conduct a workshop on fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you. So in the budget that you have before you, there has been some changes since the last workshop that we had. The revenues have generally stayed the same, although there's a few changes here and there. And then we have made some cuts in the expenditures. If you recall, in the budget for the general fund, the total general fund was in the red by about $469,000 last workshop. What you have before you right now, we're in the red about $312,000 in total expenditures and transfers out over revenues and transfers in. So we're still about $312,000 in the red. Some of the changes that we included, that we cut, we eliminated a vehicle in the police department. They were acquiring 3 vehicles, now they're acquiring 2. That's probably the biggest. There was a reduction in the amount of money spending on community cleanup, and by community cleanup, that is the money that Ben has budgeted for demolitions, not for mowing and sweeping and stuff like that. That is for demolitions. So that was reduced in the budget from, I think, 60,000 down to 50,000. And so last year, I think we budgeted 40, and I had bumped it up originally, and I bumped it back down to 50. So we still have more than we had budgeted this year in that, but less than previously. Those are a couple of the big. Gerald, do you remember what we cut from your budget? I challenged Gerald to look at streets and parks, and the chief to look at the fire department, because between the two of those were like 70% of the total general fund budget. Ben's had some big numbers as well, and we made some cuts there. He also helped made some cuts. Yes, they eliminated the purchase of a new grader. So we still are planning to purchase the skid steer, but we eliminated the purchase of a grader because they were able to do some work to it to get the existing grader operational.
I know we had some discussion of that grader a couple meetings back. Had it working safely, or just, okay. Okay. Well, that's good news. Thank you.
But I got about $60,000 from each of their budgets. I think about 10 or 12 from Ben's budget. But we did get the budget. It did get it down to 312,000. So there's a couple of things, a couple of ideas that I had that I talked to the mayor a little bit about them this afternoon. I think I talked to Councilman Flores when he came in earlier this morning. But so right now we have $100,000 budgeted for work to replace the deck at the pool, which is a major undertaking, but it's my understanding that that's been needed for several years and has been put off and put off and put off. So I said, I want to make that happen this year. But we also have $125,000, and that's a one-time expense that we normally wouldn't have. We also have $125,000 expense for pool operations. When we opened the pool from May to September, the cost to operate the pool is about $115,000. So I was suggesting as one option to save $100,000 is to eliminate, to not open the pool next year because we're replacing the deck, or we don't do the deck next year and just kick that can down a little bit further down the road. That's one option, but we doesn't have to decide right now. There was another discussion that we had. We're putting this current fiscal year, we're putting $100,000 towards the fire truck, and that's sitting in building interest and staying there. I've got $100,000 that goes to the truck next year. I also put an extra $50,000 to help finance the fire department construction. So that I was told that costs about $500,000. I was told they've raised about $100,000, and I suggested to them that if they went out and got financing to build it, and the city contributed $50,000 a year, that would pay for the cost of the station over the next 10 years. So I put $50,000 in this budget for that purpose. And talking to the mayor, he wasn't sure that they would be ready for that, and so that's one potential place that we might be able to cut, or reduce the amount that we're setting aside for the truck, although I hate to do that. This budget does include $100,000 being transferred to our street CIP, combined with $400,000 from the tax note that we issued in 2025, to do another $500,000 in street reconstruction next year. I think it's incredibly important that we stick to that and don't slack off. But that was another big line item. Now, one of the things I also wanted to point out to you, if you look at this sheet here that I passed out before the meeting, if you look at the first section on the left-hand side, the $1,631,000 was the fund balance in the general fund at the year end 25 or October 1, 26. It was the same year end, year beginning. We were at $1,631,000. That was a number that we got from Brooks Watson. I remember when we adopted the budget, we were thinking we had $3.1 million in the general fund, and actually have about $1,631,000. And we had budgeted, when we adopted this budget, if you recall, to take $500,000 from fund balance. This ending fund balance was not quite enough to cover a 105-day reserve. Almost, but not quite. moving forward from this year, and these are unaudited estimates, but where we project ending the year is with an ending fund balance of $1,825,000 in the general fund, which is a significant increase. It's actually over our reserve requirement. So in the calculations below, if you look at under the general fund, the 105-day reserve is $1,544,147 based on the budget that we have before you right now. If we cut the budget some, depending upon where we cut it, that can reduce our 105-day reserve. But you have to recalculate your 105-day reserve every time you adopt a budget. Does that make sense? So with the budget that you have in front of you, it has a $1,544,000 reserve requirement, and it also projects at the end of next year that we'll have $1,513,000 of enterprise fund reserve. So we're about we're about $31,000 below our 105-day reserve in the general fund. So we're actually doing not that bad. We're almost back to, to begin the year, we're back to where we're supposed to be. But with a budget that's $313,000 in the red, we're only about $31,000 below our 105-day fund balance. So it's not as bad and dire. We could adopt this budget as it is and only be $31,000 below our 105-day reserve in the general fund.
Real quick, if I may, for our citizens who are listening to this and they hear this fund balance, and I know we've had some citizens come in here and speak during citizens communications and refer to this as a slush fund, and they think this is money that we just hold and hold and hold for no reason. But there is a highly legitimate reason that we keep these fund balances. Can you give, please, the 5-minute version of why we do this so we can give the educated answer of what this is, the purpose of this enterprise fund and this other fund balance is, please? Thank you.
So when we adopt a budget as coming up, we are estimating revenues for the general fund. We're estimating expenses for the general fund. There are times when, and I try to be conservative in estimating revenues, but there are times when our actual revenues don't meet our budgeted revenues. So if you had a year where your actual revenues were $200,000 or $300,000 below, in total right now, for the general fund, we have $5,313,000 in revenues. If we're 10% off of that, that's $500,000. If we're 5% off, that's $250,000. If we're off on our estimates, something happens in the economy, and our revenues don't come in as they're projected, that's going to hurt the city, and we still need to be able to operate. And on the expenditures, those are also estimates. We don't know what might happen, from the standpoint of there can be cataclysm. I came from a city that had hurricanes, and there was a chance for that. If a tornado, when I was in Henderson, a tornado came through the city on Memorial Day. We were fortunate that there was a lot of bad weather, and so we actually we hit statewide FEMA targets, so we got reimbursed. But if we don't, a tornado in a local community is typically going to be all on the city. So those expenses can go off the charts, hundreds of thousands of dollars off of what we're predicting. Or, if there's something happens to the building, one of our police station or our city that we actually have to spend money to make repairs that are not covered by some kind of insurance, those expenses can be off. So when that happens in the same year, you're going to dip into your fund balance, your 105-day reserve, because your expenses are going to exceed your budgeted expenses. Your revenues are not going to meet your budgeted revenues. So that's the risk that you face because it's all estimated ahead of time. We do the best job that we can in estimating those, be as conservative as we realistically can, and most times we actually we do good. But that's the reason why you have a fund balance. And the smaller the city that you're in, the bigger, and the smaller budget that you have, the bigger reserve that you really want to keep. Some bigger cities will have a 60-day fund balance, but they have a $20 million, $30 million general fund instead of a $5 million general fund. There's some cities that have a 120-day reserve, and they have a $2 or $3 million fund balance or general fund.
But it's a state law, you have to have it.
There's a state, Michelle, do you know, is there a state law that requires it, or is it just strongly recommended? It's highly recommended. There's not a state law, and council sets the policy as to where that fund balance is. City council, years ago, set our fund balance reserve at 105 days, which is, for a city our size, is probably very reasonable. I wouldn't recommend necessarily lowering it.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sorry, I went longer than 5 minutes.
That's okay.
Good.
Oh, okay.
Good example.
So anyways, and when you get back to it, what I'm saying is with the budget that we have before you right now, if it went through and we ended up adopting it as it is, we would only be $31,000 short of our 105-day reserve fund balance in water and sewer.
But we're 300 and something thousand in the red.
Or something. But we are, because we would then, because what you would do is you'd pledge additional, right now, beginning of the year, we're $300,000 over. We're $300,000 over our reserve fund requirement.
For budgeting though, is it okay? Can we still approve it being negative 31,000?
It would be transfers from reserve. It would take, those transfers from reserve would take us to that $1,513,000.
But we're safe with over the additional funds in the reserve. Is that correct?
Yes, at the beginning of the year, we're over our,
Yes.
we're $300,000 over our 105-day
So you
reserve.
do approve it with that negative balance?
We approved it, it wouldn't have a negative balance because we would add
Do
into
the
it.
transfer first.
We would add into the budget a transfer from reserves to balance the budget.
All right.
Or we can try to figure out what additional cuts that we want to make to the general fund. We're not talking about the enterprise fund yet.
Can you adopt it negatively?
I'm sorry?
Can we adopt it, not transfer, adopt it, knowing that it's negative, and then do a budget as the year goes on, we see what we're doing, knowing full well that we may still have to make a budget amendment?
No, we have to adopt a balanced budget.
You have to adopt a balance.
But again, we won't transfer that money until we actually have to. From reserve, actually, we don't actually even, when you're doing it, like in that case, you're not even transferring the money, it's just a paper showing that you have a balanced budget.
Mind you calculating 105 days reserve, you're taking out one-time expenditures.
Right, you can see that she's done that in these calculations.
So it's an operational 105 days, not necessarily look at 3 vehicles or anything.
So that pool deck doesn't calculate into that then? Okay.
So you can see how she's done that with the calculations here. So is there any direction or, in regard to the general fund? You can also, and we can talk about it when we get to the enterprise fund. The budget does propose to have a $350,000 transfer from the enterprise fund to the general fund in this current budget.
In pool deck, we have to close it. It's either or. We can't do the pool deck or open it for the summer and close it and then start the pool deck.
Yes. We don't have, it doesn't have to be an either or proposition. Only from a fiscal standpoint,
Right, okay.
would it have to be considered as an either or proposition. But the pool deck could be, the pool is completely closed from September, from Labor Day to Memorial Day.
I provided you my thoughts on the city pool today when we spoke,
Deck is 100,000.
and I'll just provide them publicly here as well. I want our citizens to have a city pool. As I told you earlier today, there's not a lot for our kids to do in town, right? And I think that's one of the things, well, I'm pretty sure I can safely say that is one of the things that our kids and our families look forward to every summer, is going to that pool and swimming.
Is there a reason why it can't be redone September 1st till?
No.
I think we were looking.
The only reason for looking at that alternative was from a financial standpoint.
Oh, gotcha.
There's absolutely no reason why it can't be done while it's closed.
Right.
And it would be. If money was not the concern, that's the way it would be done.
I agree, should be.
So,
And I agree with the mayor.
Yeah, we're not doing
I was just, when I was looking through the budget of other places to cut, that was one of the things that came across. We do the home program, I think that we have contracts going forward, so I don't know if we can back out of the $40,000 local match participation at this point. We can't reduce that, can we? Yeah, and we can't reduce the $40,000 because we already have homes that are under contract. I don't,
okay, what do you need, Tim? I think you know where I stand on the pool.
is there any changes that you would like me to see, or do you want me to try to find some more and get it balanced with the 105-day reserve being what it is?
When you take the money out, where does it put the reserve?
Sorry?
If you take out what you need out of the reserve, What does that put the reserves at? How many days?
If we actually were able to take out the 312,000, it would actually set our reserve in excess of our 105-day reserve by $280,000.
So we would still be okay.
Why would we would do,
If we wanted to, I don't know, I'm not suggesting that, I think that.
That's an option.
It's an option. We don't need, and I'd like to have a fund balance reserve in excess of our reserve requirement a little bit, have a little bit of a cushion. But we could go forward this year and leave the budget as it is with everything we're talking about funding, and with the realization that we're a little bit below our reserve, 105-day reserve requirement come October 1, 2027. Now,
Unless revenues go up.
unless the revenues go up, and I would say that I estimated our sales tax revenues conservatively. If you look at the revenues on the very first section of the budget, you know, our ad valorem taxes are estimated at $2.9 million. Our sales tax are at $1.3 million. Between the two of them, that's already $4.2 million of a $5 million general fund budget. $5,313,000. So that's 80% of our budget within those two numbers. Sales tax revenue could easily, I wouldn't be surprised if they came in at $1.4 million next year.
They also still collected property taxes. They had a glitch in their software, and so there was a period that we weren't getting the information or deposits, and then they got that fixed, and so we still have revenue coming in from property taxes, so, and usually in August, September, we might get a few, but I think the last one I looked at was like $78,000 for this revenue.
I mean, we had budgeted in delinquent M&O revenue, we had budgeted 35,000 and 30,000. We've actually, estimating we're gonna get 80,000 in delinquent M&Os, and I budgeted $55,000 next year.
Yes, quick question for you. You say that, like, you know, sales tax, 8.25%. When the comptroller takes that, what does the city get out of that back?
When you send it into the state,
When you send eight,
and then the state distributes on a monthly basis.
a month, like, you know, the very next month, like, you know, right now, we're in August, when y'all get July?
So when you pay the state, there's about, is it a month or 2 month delay? 2 month delay in when it's sent to the state.
What percent of that does the city get?
The city gets 1 cent. So the total rate that you pay is 8.25, is that right? And so the city gets 1 cent, half cent goes to MDD, half cent goes to the county economic development.
we pay, the county gets how much?
The county gets a half cent, and it's frustrating, let me tell you. And I don't know if you want to get into this, but there's typically, what happens is, a city has 2 cents available to it. Most cities will adopt a cent and they automatically get a cent, and then there's a second cent that's available based on a local election. And they can use that for part of it for economic development. They can set up a road and bridge fund to use that other 0.5%. They can set up a police district or a park district. They can divide that up as however they want to, that second 1 cent. In Rockdale's case, there was an election back at some point way in the past, and the half cent goes to the county instead of coming to the city. That was voted on countywide.
Are the other cities in Milam County doing that, do you think?
I'm sorry?
Do you know if the other cities in Milam County do that?
Every city in Milam County, Milam countywide, half cent goes to the city, the county. I had investigated the potential, is there any way for us to take that back?
Right.
And there's not. Unless there was a referendum at the county level to rescind that half cent tax rate. And then if that passed, then we would have to jump really quick and then adopt that half cent for the city.
And what does that equate to this year?
The half cent, that's, for the current year, we're looking at half of 1.3 million, so that's, $650,000, $675,000.
So we get 1 cent, you said out of that 1 cent, how much goes to MDD?
We get 1 cent,
half a
MDD gets a half cent.
They get the same amount we get.
No.
They get half.
Oh, half, sorry.
We get 1 cent, they get half a cent, the
Gotcha.
county
They're
gets
saying
half
half
cent,
of our cent.
equal to 2 cents that the state doesn't get.
And that's paid in and then paid back? We don't take it out, right?
You get it
Goes
back
the
2
same.
months later.
Okay.
Sales tax, you know, when you buy hamburger at McDonald's, they send that sales tax that you pay to the state, and the state sends us
Oh,
a check.
This is what Kelly said.
Okay, do you need action right now, Tim?
I need direction.
Okay, council, let's get focused. What direction do you want to give Tim?
I want a clarification.
Okay, go ahead.
If we leave this budget the way it is, and we choose to balance it out of reserves, our 105-day reserve will be $31,000 shy of being at 105 days. Is that correct?
That is correct, with the caveat that the numbers still need to be audited,
Correct.
but it's going to be relatively close.
I would support that.
And that's without the
That's without cutting the pool or the pool
fire
expense,
truck thing and stuff like that.
cutting the money for the fire department.
We've kept the fire department, which huge, think it's very viable, that we support that. And I know Mr. Goodrich is here today, and they feel comfortable with their audit pool and everything they have. I'll make it work. Make you feel comfortable with it. Again, two of the biggest areas you gotta have.
I will tell you this, so they were planning to do 3, and what I encourage the chief to do is to look at a long-term plan to get the patrol vehicles on a regular rotation. That's gonna require 3 vehicles a year, to get them on proper rotation. So we're shorting ourselves to do that. That means that at some year down the road, we're gonna have to do 4 vehicles instead of 3.
But you're balanced and you're $31,000 shy on a reserve.
Right, on a
You're
reserve.
$31,000 shy of a reserve of 1.5 million, 1 point,
Yes,
million and a half.
that's correct.
Okay, and, let me just ask this, council. Does anybody not support that? Does anybody not support that? I think you just got your direction.
Thank you. So on the water and sewer fund, if you flip back to page, it's called the enterprise fund. If you
What page?
flip back to page 19, so we are, and haven't changed this, I don't think much at all from what you previous, well, I did change it from the last budget because we made some corrections in the grants having to do with that, and I'll explain that in a minute. But currently, the budget that you have before you, this year, at year end, we're estimating that we're going to contribute $23,000 to fund balance. The budget that we amended back in January had us actually taking out $298,000. It was going to add more, but we were actually doing a transfer from enterprise fund debt service reserve, which we're not doing. We're not proposing to do anymore. Without doing that, we're adding $23,000 to the fund balance. At the year end next year, we're budgeting to add $184,000 to fund balance. Okay.
Which is currently at what?
So if you go back to this sheet, at the end of 24-25, according to Brooks Watson, we had a fund balance of $738,000. Originally, we were transferring $650,000 from fund balance, which would have left us almost nothing. We did the budget amendment, made some changes, and the budget that we came up with is what I mentioned earlier. This year, through what we're adding, we're actually increasing that from 738 to 762. Next year's budget, if adopted the way it's proposed, will increase from 762 to 946. The 105-day reserve in the water and sewer fund is $988,000. So with this budget, we're adding to the reserve every year, but we're still $42,000 short.
And once, this is water and sewer, this is the collections from those, correct?
Enterprise funds, that includes water, sewer, sanitation, solid waste.
So, how, is it the increase because of the new construction homes?
I'm sorry?
Where's the money coming, why do we have such an increase? Is it because of the amount of new
We
homes
raised rates.
True.
That's where additional revenue is coming from.
and new homes?
And, we're adding new homes. If you look at the, on page, on page 14, we're budgeting $2.6 million in revenue in the new year from water collections. Again, this has three main sources of revenue that come into the enterprise fund: water collections, wastewater collections, and solid waste collections. So I had budgeted 2.625 last year as revenue. We're actually going to get about $2.5 million is what I'm estimating this year. Next year with a rate increase going the full year, I'm estimating we're going to have $2.6 million in revenue. In wastewater, we budgeted $1,575,000 this year. We're actually going to meet that at 1.587, and I'm estimating revenue at 1.65 next year. And in solid waste, We budgeted $1 million in revenue. I'm estimating we're actually taking $1,016,000 and budgeting $1,060,000 in revenue for solid waste next year. Now realized, they're going up on their rates in January 1. BVR is. I negotiated them down, I forget what it was, like 3% increase instead of a 5% increase on residential. But anyways, they're going up on their rates, so we will have to increase our solid waste rates before, probably
Tim,
in December.
did you consider any accruals because of the Millerton Landing development?
In development services, not from a revenue, water, and sewer standpoint, because I don't think that we're gonna have much impact from Millerton Landing on water and sewer revenue next year.
You don't think we will? You don't
No,
think we'll begin to see that soon?
If we do, it'll just be for a couple months, because remember, this goes through October 1 of next year.
Okay.
So they probably won't, if they're aggressive, they might start building homes in May, but they're not gonna have many homes.
Gotcha. Fair enough. It's probably a wise move.
It's not gonna
They started dirt out there?
increase it much.
Same thing with the industrial side, anything that,
I did not calculate any industrial water and sewer revenue, because I don't know that it's gonna happen.
right.
But anyway, so this particular budget, I'm comfortable with recommending to council. It does add to the reserve, and I thought when I talked to you last year, that it was gonna take us 2 or 3 or 4 years to get our reserve back to the way they were, but because of the work that staff has done this year, and I think we did better this year after the budget cuts, continuing to be fiscally restricted. From an expense standpoint, our revenues, I think, did well,
So just heard you say, go ahead, Councilmember Perry.
25, 26, you're taking the fund balance from 738 to 762. Are we currently trending to be able to do that? That's what we budgeted, and that
Yes.
looks to be
Now,
doable?
yep, absolutely. But let me go back real quick to one thing that kind of caused me quite a bit of heartburn. We corrected it for next year, but in the current year budget, if you look on page 14, in the first section, second line from the bottom of the first section, under donations and grants, there's $1,583,865. Do you see that?
Where you said the second line from where?
14.
Second line from the bottom in the first section under total, above total water.
Okay.
$1,583,000. So that is the total amount of revenue that's available through the generator grant and Post Oak Savannah. We've got 3 different grants through Post Oak Savannah, 23, 24, and 25. That we still, some of that we need to submit for reimbursement. But then the generator grant that's in here that I projected year-end as being totally received, and if you look down in the expenses, totally expended, ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry, isn't gonna happen. But I don't know how much of that generator might happen. So what will happen is I budgeted for it all to happen, and then whatever's remaining after October 1 will encumber into next year, both revenue and expense. That make sense? So the expense portion of that cost is on the next page, where you have $1,173,645, $200,110, and 99.
So you're saying that the reimbursement is not gonna happen because the work is not gonna happen, therefore we can't ask for the reimbursement, or?
Yes. On the generator project, I don't think they're supposed to deliver the generator. The first generator is not supposed to be delivered until October. No, on the generator project,
It's January, because they asked me to settle.
the first generator is when? January? I thought they had said the first generator might come in as early as October, maybe, I don't know. But it's not gonna be before October 1.
Right, that's why we can't,
And so we're not gonna get that revenue, because not gonna have the expense either.
right.
We'll have some expense through engineering, and there may be some miscellaneous stuff that comes in, but not very much. So just so you're aware of that, that expense will be carried over into the new budget as a budget amendment encumbrance. Okay?
But
And
it'll
then,
carry over dollar for dollar.
sorry?
It'll carry from one budget dollar for dollar.
Yes, yep, but it shouldn't affect it shouldn't affect the fund balance
Right.
either way, unless that project isn't done by October 1, 2027. But it's still, really, long-term, is not gonna affect the bottom line.
And I think I heard you say about 3 minutes ago, you feel good about this?
Yes,
And what kind of direction do you need from council?
unless you have any other changes that you'd like to see made before we finalize things.
Council? Any direction? Any changes wanted?
Ask my questions.
You good? Councilmember Caffey? Good. Councilmember Perry? Good. You're good? Nathan? Tim, I believe you got your direction right there.
Yep. So, and then the rest of the budgets have the miscellaneous budgets. You know, you have your debt service, which really isn't that flexible. That is what it is. There's not really anything to do with that. The court security, court technology, there's been some changes in how the state has us handle that, but those are pretty well laid out. And those are restricted in how they're supposed to be spent. The hotel tax fund, let me show you what we've done there. So we're estimating, I'm not sure why. We had budgeted $240,000 in revenue for the hotel, for hotel motel, for hot taxes.
Yep.
And I think that I may have been thinking that we were going to get a new hotel. I don't know, but, you know, it's not going to be, I mean, I think I'm estimating right now $215,000 in revenue. And so I just carry that over to next year. We've got interest because we are carrying a pretty good fund balance in the hot fund. So as of right now, we have some of the expenses that we budgeted. Again, $30,000 for the chamber, $10,000 for the depot, $15,000 in
You talking about the hot funds, what we've allocated? Yes, I think we've all had an opportunity to look at those.
So, you know, we may want to put some money in here before the final thing is pulled from reserves if we want to look at Wolf Park. I think the chamber is going to want to divest themselves of that and sell it to the city.
Yep.
But I may make sure I put this in there. Event funding, 85. I'm going to have to bump up event funding for the extra $15,000 for the RFA, so I will be bumping that up. But the bottom line is, in the budget, you know, it's actually drawing $59,000 from reserves for this budget, which I think we have about $450,000 in reserve. There's no reserve fund requirement. The airport fund is, you know, drawing 1903 from reserves. We are proposing for the VFD pension fund to transfer from the general fund 3,900. Basically, our pension fund for the volunteer fire department is about a little over $12,000, and we're getting, or excuse me, it's a little over, excuse me, it's $14,490. We're getting $10,500 in interest, so we don't have to carry that much of that. It's up, and it's up next year just because we've got a few new retirees.
God bless our firefighters. Keep my pension coming, please.
That's really all I have for y'all.
Council, do you have any questions for Tim? Any additional questions for Tim? Council, do we have any other business at hand before I adjourn?
No, sir.
Mayor,
Tim?
let me point out one other thing that we've done. So
Better be fast.
I am so sorry. So on page 35, there's a CIP wastewater. So we're still doing the $204,000 transfer into that. I don't have any expenditure budgeted. If we want to spend any money out of that fund next year, we're gonna have to come back to do a budget amendment. That fund is just building. That's the CIP fund where we transfer $204,000. In the street CIP fund, I mentioned earlier, we're spending $500,000 for street reconstruction. We're doing that with $100,000 transfer from the general fund, $385,000 transfer from CIP reserves, and $15,000 from interest. So this year, we're actually transferring all the money from the tax note that goes to streets into the street CIP fund. And in parks, which is this is on page 36, I budgeted this park project as if it were approved, grant approved. So I did budget the grant. I normally don't like to do that, but I figured I'm just going to do it. If we don't get the grant, we don't move forward with the project, and we'll try again or look for another option. But that money is all there. And we're transferring in the money from the park capital fund into that parks CIP fund. So there's $72,000 in money that has been donated that's getting transferred into that. And it will be restricted. It'll continue to be restricted. That's all I have for council.
Thank you. Council, any other items? Nope.
Well,
Tim, you don't get any more time.
just kidding.
We're adjourned to 7:12 p.m. Thank you.